Well, hello and welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us. Adamawa State has been a subject of highly charged political discussions for decades. These discussions have mainly centered on the arrested development of the state, which has been the bane of economic growth and development of the state and its people. With the upcoming elections in 2019, there are so many options out there waiting for the people of Adamawa State to decide who will pilot the affairs of the land of beauty into prosperity. Job creation, poverty, unemployment and insecurity are some of the few challenges, or many challenges rather, that remain unsolved and are fast waiting for solutions. Ambassador Jameel Zubairu is one of the many names nursing an ambition to govern Adamawa State into the future. But who is he and what is he bringing to the table? What are his plans to make Adamawa State bigger, better and brighter? My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. We're here to set the agenda and further discussion. From our studio in Bajabura Hills, this is On the Spot. Right, welcome to the program once again. Let's get to the heart of the matter, shall we? Ambassador Jameel Zubairu, as I said earlier, is in the program today and he is on the spot. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you so much for coming in.
Thank you, sir.
First things first, for the viewers who have no idea who you are and you know what you represent as a person, kindly give us the story of Ambassador Jameel Zubairu.
Well, the story of Ambassador Jameel is a simple one. I was born in Yola to the families of Zubair, Abubakar Waziri and Fatima Lale. My parents are both indigenous of Yola and Jimeta, because my father comes from the prominent family of the Waziris. My mother comes from an elder from Jimeta, Yelwa. His name is Hamidul Ali. I partially grew up around this neighborhood. By the virtue of my father's calling, that is his own profession, he had also been a diplomat. So my livelihood, or rather I spent my livelihood in different parts of the country and outside the country. I started my primary school at Mustafa Primary School in 1963. We left Yola on my father's diplomatic posting to the Mali, Republic of Mali. That was shortly before the Civil War. On getting there, the Civil War broke out. I couldn't come back. I could not go to school because it was a French colony. There were no English schools. I stayed there for about 2-3 years without going to school.
Wow.
When I came back, we settled in Jimeta. My father's house was in Nasarao. If you know the church that is behind it is a school called SUM Primary School. And from there, although there was a school behind my house, I will tell you why I'm telling you this story. It was considered a missionary school, so a Muslim like me shouldn't go to a missionary school. So I was registered at Central Primary School. It was a long distance walk from my house. It's almost 30 minutes walk to my primary school. And I had to walk mornings and evenings. We go for lessons in the mornings, come back in the afternoon, after school closed, go back again in the evening. That was the routine at that time. I finished in that primary school, then got admission to a school in Numan. It used to be Comprehensive Secondary School. I don't know if they still call it that name. And that was also there were two schools that were merged together when the government took over all mission schools. It was Craft School and Villanova Secondary Schools that were merged. I finished my secondary school there. And on completion, I was admitted at Bayero University, Kano. I went there for what they call preliminary studies, 4-term preliminary studies. But by providence, I was also admitted at King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah. With my results, when I went over to visit my father, who was also posted there, I ventured into, looking for admission there, and I was admitted instantly. I studied at King Abdulaziz University, graduated there, but before even starting it, I had no basic knowledge of Arabic or Islamic studies or something like that. And the reason why my father wanted me to really study in King Abdulaziz University, or rather my parents, I happened to, when I was in secondary school, like I said, part of the school was a missionary school, and we had to study Bible knowledge and so on and so forth. I happened to be one of the best in those subjects. Part of the Old Testament is just like the prophetic stories in the Quran, so it was a smooth sailing for me. And the tendency was, probably he is crossing over. Yeah.
So I guess he wanted to reverse engineer the whole process by sending you to Saudi Arabia.
Well, that could be the intention, but it served me in a better way, because I now have a very good understanding of what Christian faith is, and a better understanding of my religion, which is Islamic religion. With that kind of blend, the kind of person that you are molded into is a liberal, tolerant, understanding person. If you understand your religion very well, you would be able to respect other people's religion, because all religions teach respect. They teach basically the same things, believing God, doing justice, being fair to people, doing the right things. They are not different in any of the books. It is people's thinking and disposition and interest, and parochial interest, if I can call it that, that brings about all these differences. In a nutshell, that was my school history. Probably, if you want me to go into how I started work, I'll probably do that.
We'll get into all of that. But a more direct question is, for the viewer who must have seen the billboards, the posters in town, the question is, why do you want to be the governor of the state?
And why not, indeed? Like I said, through the goodness of the people of Adamawa State, I went to the best schools. I served the federal government because of the opportunities I got, being an indigent of Adamawa. I have, in the process, worked in very high places, I should say. I have been in the presidency on and off for over 15, 16, even up to 20 years, because my last stint in the presidency was about 7 years. Therefore, it's a grooming place for making me a strategic bureaucrat. And it also gave me an insight of how governance is done strategically. It has exposed me to all the arts of governance, for example. And with the exposure I have had in my diplomatic practice, I have also learned the art of international best practices. I am also exposed to most of the trade, economic, and diplomatic policies. Gaining all these experiences will go to waste if I don't come back to Adamawa and apply them.
I can almost say you're the perfect guy for the job.
We are all perfect. But even amongst, like what I used to say to people is that all the contestants, all those who are vying for that position are qualified. But even amongst the qualified ones, there are people who are more qualified. Your disposition will say why you are more qualified than the others. You know, so with all due respect, the other contestants or the other aspirants are equally as good, but they probably don't have the kind of rich experiences that I have had. And that is why I'm offering myself. I'll give you an analogy. When I was trying to contemplate and discuss with my family, because when you want to do that, you would always take your family into confidence and tell them why you want to do this. My 14-year-old asked me a question. He said, "Daddy, you have everything. The code name or rather the appellate excellency you have already earned. If it is just flying a flag on a car, you have done that. You have represented your country outside, where you are not just recognized as an Adamawa indigene, but a representative of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And why do you want to go back and serve your people?" I gave him a simple analogy. I said, when you have achieved this much in life, and you look back and see that your fellow citizen in Adamawa State is going backwards, there is arrested development, do you have a sense of fulfillment? He said, no. I said, when you got the best education as a citizen of Adamawa, you look back and see that other children, either children of your relatives, friends, or well-wishers, or just ordinary citizens of Adamawa are denied that opportunity. Do you think you have achieved much? He said, no. I said, what would you do if you were in my place? He said, I will run back to Yola and see that all these things have changed.
So basically, if we're not all free, no one is free.
Oh, absolutely. If we are not all free, then no one is free. And my success is tied to the success of every individual in Adamawa. And that is how I look at it. Having contributed my quota at the federal level, I think I can also bring those experiences, those connections I have to come and utilize those opportunities that are available in the states, so that we can, together with the people of Adamawa, make the lot of our life, our well-being, better than it can be. What we have now is arrested development, like you rightly observed.
Okay, talking about what you're willing to offer and how your experiences must have prepared you for the job ahead. A lot of people really would want to know, what about your track record? There's so much talk about vetting aspirants or eventual candidates, going by their track record. We can obviously tell what kind of leaders they will be in the near future. What would you say about your track record when people want to know? I mean, what have you done lately for the people of Adamawa State or for the country to inspire a lot of people to want to gravitate towards you?
Well, like I said, the opportunities I have had to represent Adamawa, I have been an ambassador of Adamawa to a state in the first place. So my contribution to the federal government is also a contribution to Adamawa State. I have, like I said, rose through the ranks from a level 8 officer to the peak of my career as a civil servant, which is a director with blemish record. If I had not contributed or if I was not that productive, I probably wouldn't have been in the presidency for so long. In the diplomatic service, I also contributed immensely in bringing so many things to bear in the economic development of Nigeria. By implication, if I help Nigeria, I'm also helping Adamawa State. So you don't have to necessarily be in Adamawa located to help Adamawa. You could help Adamawa from a distance. You probably can even help Adamawa much more when you are in such places like the presidency, because all issues relating to Adamawa would come to your notice. You probably educate the leaders over there on some of the innuendos that are contained in those issues, and with an informed position, they would be able to solve their problem. So I have been serving Adamawa in so many different ways. Probably not directly, since I have not worked in the state government. Or
Right.
Yes.
Right. Talking about the political race, I mean, a lot of people would say you're more of an outsider than the typical politician that we're quite used to. I mean, your name is not like a household name like most names we hear in this state. Does that in any way concern you that if it were to be a popularity contest, your candidacy would suffer a lot?
I don't agree with that notion. To start with, like I said, being a public servant does not expose you to the political terrain, but that does not mean that you are not playing politics. Any politician that succeeds, he does that on the shoulders of a public servant, because they are the implementers of whatever policies you have. New, I say no, because for you to have worked in the presidency, you are exposed to all the exigencies and thuggeries of politics. Therefore, I cannot consider myself to be new to that. Yes, they say all politics are local. I may be trading on a new front in my life, but once you have a motive, once you have a vision, and this will, this will connect with the aspirations of the people of Adamawa. Becoming known is very easy. Strike a chord that is in rhyme with their own aspirations, and there you go.
Let's talk about your vision, your agenda for the land of beauty, Adamawa State. What is your vision for Adamawa State?
My vision for Adamawa is to see Adamawa that is peaceful. We have had a spell of insecurities, communal clashes, ethno-religious crisis. This, in so many ways, affects our own development. Without unity, without cohesion, without purposeful leadership, Adamawa will continue to have an arrested development. My vision is to see an Adamawa that is competitive in all fronts, both in terms of security, like I earlier said, in terms of food security, which is very important, in terms of investments that will boost our economy, in terms of revenue generation, that we don't necessarily have to rely almost always on the federal government to give us some pension that we'll be able to pay salaries of our staff. If we generate enough, we will do more for the people of Adamawa. If we generate enough, we will improve the well-being of the citizens of Adamawa with a purposeful leadership and policies and strategies to improve agriculture, education, to provide implements and those infrastructure that will change the thinking of our farmers from just farming to feed to farming for business. That also enhances the development of this place. We look at education, healthcare. I mean, in those days, some of our hospitals, even in the days of provinces, were some of the best hospitals we ever had. But now they are just, they are more of graveyards than hospitals, because the facilities are not there. The doctors and nurses are underpaid or unpaid on time. That affects even their motivation. The civil service is demotivated. A civil servant that is owed several months of salaries will definitely not put in his best when he comes to teach. I was made to understand that sometimes some of these teachers don't even go to work. How would they? They can't even afford to pay for their fare, road fare to workplace. If you can't if you can't pay your fare to workplace, then how do you get there to work? And you cannot get there to work because you have not been able to receive proper salary. And that also affects the pupil who probably, because there is nobody to direct him to, ensure that he is in classroom to learn, he'll be wandering around and play. In effect, that affects the quality of education that your child comes out with at the end of the day. So all these things are things that I'm passionately thinking of how to change it, and I think I have enough experience and strategies that could change all those ones.
Yeah. Talking about strategies, because I speak to a lot of people and they say, you know what, we don't want to hear promises anymore. We want a blueprint, a plan that says, you know what, if I take over government, this is how I'm going to go about all of that. Does Ambassador Zubairu have all of that in the works, a blueprint for Adamawa State?
Definitely. You cannot come and contest or vie for the office of governor without necessarily...
So we've seen a lot of people actually do that.
Well, this is a different person. I am a man of my words. As a diplomat, we have learned not to say much, but to do more. The art of diplomacy has taught us to be humble, and with all due respect, we, unlike some other politicians, I'm not a typical politician. I believe in action more than talking, and given the opportunity, you will see the actions I would have taken. Like I said, blueprint is a document. Implementing the blueprint is what is important. Now, how do you implement them? I thought that would have been a more appropriate action, because like you said, anybody could come and say, yes, I have a blueprint. We will do that based on what I would call the principles of democracy. Whatever you do, it has to be all-inclusive. If you carry people along, whoever you're working with should be able to buy into your own vision. Once they buy into your own vision, then it makes it easier for you to carry them along. And it makes it easier for them to understand the objectives you want to attain. Inclusiveness, one. Equity. If you are fair to everybody, you give them their due rights and privileges, I'm sure they will be more than willing to toe the line with you, walk the walk until you get to the promised land. And fairness and justice. If you're fair and just, all these communal clashes will not be there. Now, some of the ways we could use to alleviate most of these problems are providing the right atmosphere for us to implement some of these policies. One, if you attract investment, it increases your revenue. For example, we have one of the best phosphates in Michigan. What has Adamawa State or the current government is doing about it? I don't know. We can exploit that. It's a revenue earner. It will give us a lot of money.
A lot of administrations, even the current administration, did talk about exploring some of our mineral resources, but
did
all
talk
of that has
about
been,
Did talk about
is there a possibility that you might also talk about it, but at the end of the day find it very difficult to implement?
Have they tried to go out to, reach out to all these donor agencies and partner with them, pay their own counterpart funding so that all these things could be achieved? A simple example is the River Benue. The River Benue has been dammed. That affects so many lives. A fisherman loses his job because there is no water for fish to grow. The farmer loses his produce because there is not enough water to, grow his plants or produce. The shepherd who brings his cow to drink water is simple look at the law of the sea, especially at it relates to shared natural resources, would have told you that Cameroon should not just have dammed the river without fulfilling certain obligations of the law.
You appear to have so many ideas for Adamawa State, but give us your priority list. Like, what are some of the things you would love to tackle first? Because, I mean, the youth will want to hear what your plans are about job creation to fight unemployment. Poverty is really, really a big issue in Adamawa State, as it is across the country. And of course, there's the issue of, the health sector, education sector that the current administration, has been trying to tackle for quite some time. So what is your top 3 agenda like?
The first one, like I said, is peace and security. Without, peace and security, there wouldn't be any kind of development. The state will be thrown into chaos. People will be fighting each other, and therefore...
You do know that governors have very limited, access to the security apparatus, right?
There are so many ways you can ensure security in your state. It doesn't have to be by policing alone. There could be so many outlets. For example, you could have an elders forum where ethnic groups will sit down, negotiate. I mean, we have lived in peace before. Why now? What causes all this is breakdown of trust. Bring back that trust, and you will bring back unity. If you bring back unity, there will be cooperation. If there is cooperation amongst people, there would be progress. If there is progress, we will all develop to the status that we are expected to be. Agriculture is the mainstay of our economy in Adamawa, but we have to, change the thinking of a farmer. He should not just farm to feed himself. He should be doing what we call agri-farming, agribusiness, where he could farm, eat from it, sell from it, and earn money. And that can only be done by redirecting or re-educating them on the processes. If an educated farmer, will improve the yield of his produce, provide the infrastructure, provide the implements, farming implements at affordable prices, all this will help to change the perspective of just food for feeding to food for feeding and business. That will also enhance the economic well-being of an individual farmer and to the populace at the same time. In those days, we used to have what we call craft schools, if you remember. We had regular secondary schools and the craft schools. The regular secondary schools are meant for people who are mostly more more educationally inclined, or more academically inclined, while the crowds are people who are very good with their hands. Both ways, you earn a living. Where are they now? We have to reestablish that. If we reestablish that, we give our teeming youth enough skills to earn their own living. If there is unemployment, it brings about youth restiveness. If you have youth restiveness, you have disruption in peace and order. So how do you change that? You have to, provide an opportunity for them to learn skills, gain more jobs, feed themselves. They don't have to resort to drugs, for example. You can see that because of all this unemployment and youth restiveness, consumption of drugs has increased. We cannot afford to have a population that is docile, a population that is unproductive. We need a population that is not only productive, but proactive also.
Okay, talk to me about your political party, because a lot of people still have very nostalgic memories of what happened prior to APC's victory in 2015. A lot of people talk about whether PDP is the party they can trust once again. What do you say to people who have concerns about whether they can trust your party first before even trusting the candidate?
They say to AI is human. Over time, there were so many mistakes that were committed in the party. And I am sure within the last 3 years, the teaming members of PDP sat down around the table and looked at what went wrong. We have looked at what went wrong, and we have discovered some of the mistakes we have made. What is important is you admit you have made mistakes, and you're prepared to correct them. And I will tell you, with the kind of synergy, the kind of cohesiveness, the kind of reorientation that the party is having now, it is a new chapter of cooperation, understanding. I don't think that history of lack of internal democracy will repeat itself. The consequences of the loss of election in 2015 has had so much impact on the lives of so many people, and that we realize that the only way to move forward is to base our progress on the principles I enumerated earlier. Okay.
Yeah. Talk to me finally on why the PDP delegates should pick you as the candidate of the PDP, and why the people of Adamawa should trust you with their mandate come 2019.
Well, like I said, I have worked and I have gotten to a position that I am proud of, and I think the people of Adamawa should also be proud of. I have a lot of experiences and expertise to bring to the table. I understand the problems in Adamawa very well, and I'm sure given the opportunity, I will be able to, along with them, move Adamawa forward.
Okay. Let's just take a moment's break. We will be back in just a moment to wrap things up with Ambassador Jameel Zubairu, who is still here in the studio, a PDP aspirant ahead of the 2019 gubernatorial election here in Adamawa State. Join us after the break for part 2 of the conversation. All right, welcome back to the program. This is On the Spot. Today's edition is focusing on the race for the state government house in Adamawa State as, of course, the build-up to the 2019 general election continues to gather a lot of momentum. In the studio is a PDP aspirant, Ambassador Jameel Zubairu, who, of course, is one of those, as he says, highly qualified candidates that want the mandate of the people of Adamawa State in 2019. Now, just before the break, I was talking about, why people should invest, in your candidacy ahead of 2019. Talk to me about the political atmosphere, because people watching the program would say, you're a different breed of politician. Are you more of a diplomat than a politician? Because most of the politicians here at home and also very gentle with, the expression about, how things are shaping up, whether they're in government or out of government. So specifically, with regards to the APC administration here in Adamawa State, what are the things that they're doing right that you would love to continue, perhaps, if you get the mandate? Or what are some of the things that, you would love to change, from the current trajectory?
Ordinarily, I wouldn't want to discuss APC.
That's a diplomat talking, isn't it?
Well, with the art of diplomacy.
I've never seen a PDP member hesitate to really assess the APC administration.
I'm pretty sure it's obvious. Everybody who is in Adamawa State knows what PDP is doing wrong or doing right. So it's not just about what they are doing wrong or right. It's about, putting Adamawa back on the pedestal, on developmental pedestal. Like I said it in a nutshell. There is arrested development. How can you, for the love of life, deny your public servants their salaries? How do you want them to survive?
A lot of people say that's a thing of the past. It's not the norm anymore.
Well, I don't know if they have been paid their monies. Have they?
Well, I mean, if you're making reference to the situation with the teachers and local government employees, that has been really, so to say, solved for now.
They are still owed several months of salaries. Do you know the consequence of that? Because over time, they have been borrowing money to live their own lives. When you borrow money, you lose integrity. When you borrow money, you add more burden on yourself. It affects your life.
But the counter would be that the PDP is not holier than thou, because the APC administration did say they inherited a very turbulent system, heavily indebted, and the system is almost failed, as they put it.
Well, like I said, we are talking about a new PDP. Those mistakes were made, and we have realized some of the mistakes that we have done. We did not say we were saints. We said we are human who can err. And sitting back and seeing what is happening now, we can see it's just like a spectator watching football on the field. You play more football than the person playing, But the good thing is we have learned from the mistakes of those players in the field, and we are prepared, to change all these things for the betterment of Adamawa State.
Okay, one of APC's most pronounced agenda, especially in 2015, is the idea of fighting corruption, which the PDP also, gave birth to the establishment of the likes of EFCC, ICPC, and the rest. And Nigerians want to see a continuation of that, if not a much more intensive, fight against graft, which is, one of the reasons why Nigeria is the way it is today. What is your own, idea or proposal towards curbing corruption in Adamawa State?
Well, corruption, as you rightly put, is a cankerworm in our governance system, and there are so many ways you can reduce corruption. Even in the developed world, there are certain levels of corruption. As human beings, we can circumvent certain how do I put it, certain issues. For example, this government came in with a promise to fight corruption seriously, without necessarily mentioning names. There are so many corrupt instances that has not been looked into. How are they then fighting corruption? It baffles me when a government that came on that promise, it sits back and allows people to get away with all these crimes.
Are you one of those people that sees the glass half empty instead of half full? Because Nigerians seem to really appreciate the anti-corruption war.
Well, what happened to Minor? Like I said, I didn't want to mention names. What happened to the person that is in this state? What happened to Ambassador IOK? Are there no instances of corruption? I'll give you just the latest one. Just a day, is it yesterday or day before?
Day before.
Akpabio, Senator Akpabio, the former Senate minority leader, defected to APC. Do you know what the chairman of APC said? That Akwa Ibom was killed by corruption for 16 years. Who were the leaders of that state in those days? Victor Atta, who was a governor for 8 years, is now in APC. Then isn't that contradictory? Akpabio himself is now in
But that's
APC.
just politicians talking politics, isn't it? Sometimes you people say things that you don't necessarily mean, just to get people really hyped up.
There you go. Now that is the difference between me and those traditional politicians. I'm a politician with the finesse of diplomacy and bureaucracy. And this, I'm sure, will come to play in whatever I do.
And there's a lot of people who talk about the need to fight corruption, you know, simultaneously with the need to prevent it actually from happening within the circle of government.
Yes, if you plug most of the loopholes, you will reduce corruption. Most of our corruption tendencies come because of wastages. Do you understand? If you can plug all these ones, you would be able to fight it effectively. And when you are fighting corruption, don't do it selectively. Because when you do that, the concept is now abused. And for you to be able to to fight corruption properly, you should be able to, back those agencies with appropriate laws. You can, for example, see how, the EFCC's chairmanship confirmation went. It has weakened the agency, in my opinion. Who did it? APC.
A lot of people have been pointing the finger at PDP, saying that it helps sabotage the whole process.
How did they do that? That is far-fetched. I don't believe PDP, which is not in the Senate, which does not control any of those agencies. How are they likely to do that? It's not believable. At least let them say something that is at least conceivably believable.
Is it not conceivable that there are political saboteurs in every other administration? I mean, you
in
should
every
know that
in every aspect
more than me. I mean, you served under the Goodluck administration that heavily believed that the insecurity was as a result of political maneuverings that help escalate the whole situation to a certain degree.
There are theories, there are practicalities. When the insurgency started, that was the belief because of the security reports that were received. But then I believe there is no government that will sit down and think that such insecurities could just come up like that without antecedents, for example. We have had issues of insecurity in those days, like that of Maitasini and the rest of them. They were given the same coloration. It wasn't PDP, was it? For any upheaval that happens, people try to, interpret the reasons, maybe based on the information available to them. Having been part of that government in those days, maybe not at the policy-making level, but I know some of the things that transpired, so many things, left to the then president. All these things could have stopped in an instant. I'll give you an instant. When it started, the Borno State government and elders were summoned. The intention of government was to declare a state of emergency. It was resisted. And don't forget, those insurgencies were not conventional war. You don't know. And when they now deployed soldiers to, follow these people, arrest them, some of them ran into houses and they are protected by their own people. How do you fight such insurgency on a conventional basis? You have to, improvise other means of fighting them.
Okay, so let's talk politics, because there's a lot of drama unfolding at the moment in the build up to the 2019 election. Obviously, defection is one very popular word for the past 2 or so weeks that we've witnessed largely at the National Assembly. What is your take on that as an uncommon or unusual politician? What do you make of the defections as it relates to the whole idea of democracy in Nigeria?
the trend of defection is not a new one. We have had it in 2015. And because of the way and manner those defections happened in 2015, the APC was a construction of strange bedfellows. And obviously, while you have strange bedfellows, there wouldn't be cohesion. And what had happened in PDP in those days, lack of internal democracy, is now the mainstay of APC's administration and the APC as a party. And because they are all coming from different perspectives with different visions, some part of that party felt they were not included in policy formulation and other aspects of governance, in spite of the fact that they contributed to the success of that party. Some of them felt that though they had contributed, they are still not consulted. So, I mean, it's only natural. If you don't belong, if you don't sit well in a place, you look for a new place.
Isn't history repeating itself with what's happening to the PDP right now, when there's this huge exodus from the APC back into the PDP? And PDP seems to be a bit excited about all of this.
There's a difference. The difference is that those people that are coming back to PDP are the same people who had left PDP. So it's just like homecoming. They're coming back.
The proverbial prodigal son, isn't it?
Well, if you wish to call it that, but repentant ones.
Okay. Talk to me about your political ambition. It is normal in this country where a politician doesn't, get the flag of the party, that he finds a different platform. Are you one of those politicians who might, likely find a different political party if the PDP doesn't give you the flag?
My civil service experience and exposure has taught me one fundamental thing, that is loyalty. I am not that kind of person who will jump from one place to the other. If I perceive there is a problem in a place, the best thing to do is to stay in there and solve that problem. Running away does not, or changing colors, going back to other parties does not solve the problem, because you might also meet the same problem up front. So what's the essence changing parties? The best way to tackle all these issues is to stay in and change the process.
You really are a rare breed of politician, I must say, because a lot of politicians would rather dodge that question than to answer it straightforward. But talk to me about certain trends that we're witnessing at this particular hour of campaigning and political alignments, where a lot of people are brave enough to be pragmatic about some of the promises that they're willing to make to people, about a certain agenda that they have. With the youths particularly, we see some candidates promising, in my cabinet, I promise to have at least 30–40% of youths below the age of 35 or below the age of 40 as part of inclusiveness, women 20% of my cabinet, things like that. What is your own, take on this as regards to what you have to offer?
Well, like I said earlier, we have, together with my party, when I win, and that is when I spread down all the strategy, going to look at all these issues. We have to be passionate. I'm a realist. I'm also somebody who believes in practicalities. I don't want to make such promises, because when you do that and you go into this, the arena itself, you find that the situation is different from what you thought it was. But what I can promise is that whatever I want to do, whatever decisions we are going to take, is going to be a decision that involves myself, the party, more of the party and the followership, the people of Adamawa. And that was why I was stressing on the issue of inclusiveness, fairness and justice and equity. Once you put all that on the plate, I'm sure you will be able to solve whatever problem you have.
Clearly, you know how politics work in Nigeria. There's a lot of it that has to do with the politics of identity. How is your campaign going to navigate all of that? Because while a lot of people would buy in your idea, largely because of the credibility of those ideas and how they can bring about the much needed change, a lot of people will mostly identify with you from your tribal background, from your religious background, and of course a lot of people will not, based on who you are. How do you intend to unify? Because you did say that you really want a united Adamawa State as much as you want a united country. Clearly, election somehow has a way of bringing out the worst in people, where we see this, differences come to light.
Again, I take you back to what I said earlier. The first thing I said is I'm an Adamawa citizen. I did not say I am Muslim or I am a Fulani person, because in the course of my life, in this journey that I have passed through, each and everybody has contributed. If you have not contributed directly, you have contributed indirectly. Some people are paying taxes. Those taxes went to my education. Some people are doing other things that invariably, impacted in my life. And importantly, Adamawa is a diverse society. Whoever plays that kind of politics based on either religion or tribe is not a serious person, in my view. You cannot come into a diverse society and lean to one section. It will not take you anywhere. And again, inclusiveness will solve all that problem. With the art of negotiation, agreements and understanding will bring solutions to all those kinds of policy. If you exclude people from dividends of democracy, if I can put it that way, you are creating a problem for yourself. Because obviously he might interpret it to mean, okay, because I'm not one of that, that is why I'm being excluded.
And it can help fuel the fire, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, okay, so finally, give us help us visualize an Adamawa State under your leadership. What would Adamawa State look like? I
want an Adamawa State that is peaceful. I want an Adamawa State that is progressive. I want an Adamawa State that is developed. I am looking forward to see an Adamawa that is self-sufficient in food and, an Adamawa State that has been able to reduce poverty. Poverty eradication, as you believed in other quarters, I don't think is sustainable, but you can reduce it to a great extent. I want an Adamawa where everybody feels he belongs. I want an Adamawa that every person from Adamawa, in fact, even those outside Adamawa, will be proud of. That's the kind of Adamawa that I would want to see.
And that's the
kind of Adamawa that I would work towards attaining. Short of saying we will create a utopian state.
Okay, we look forward to all of that. Ambassador Jameel, thank you so much for joining us on the program. I appreciate you very much for coming in. Thank you so much. All right. And that's a wrap on today's edition of the program. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to join us tomorrow. We'll be back live and exclusive only on TV Gotel. From myself and the rest of the team, it's goodbye for now. We'll see you next time.